I want to talk about this almost hilarious because of how ridiculous it is and completely ironic story coming out of Wisconsin. There's a lot of talk about the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and this is one of the reasons why that election is so important. Last year, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, get this, said that Catholic charities were not going to be exempt from paying state unemployment tax because I'm not kidding, weren't religious enough. Yes, the charities that operated under the umbrella of the Catholic Church weren't religious enough, and therefore the Wisconsin Supreme Court said their activities are secular in nature, and they neither attempt to imbue program participants with the Catholic faith nor supply any religious materials. In other words, the Wisconsin Supreme Court, that is now run by libs in a 4-3 majority, said, well, the Catholic Church, their charities aren't religious enough. They're not disseminating religious information. Therefore, they don't get this tax exemption. Now, in the Catholic Church's charity organization, the charities in question are ones that deal with adults with developmental delays and are open to all people and not just Catholics. So in effect, the state of Wisconsin has basically said, well, you don't have enough doctrine in what you're doing as a charity. Instead, all you're doing is, showing the love of Christ, which, oh my gosh, that's such a terrible thing. The ironic part about this is now in front of the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court says, well, they aren't actually displaying enough of their religious affiliation in their nonprofits, these people in Wisconsin who hate the church so much might make it a legal requirement for charities affiliated with Christian religious organizations to tell people about Jesus. I'll give you a point on that. I think we're going to be cool with that. I think that's going to be okay. Here to comment on that and so much more is the host of A Daily Pop, Adrienne Gray, and Turning Point USA contributor, Anthony Watson. Guys, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us on.
Adrienne, we'll start with you. I think this is a super interesting development in the way kind of the Supreme Court looks at free speech and whether or not the Wisconsin state libs can target Christian organizations. Now, in your sense, right, the whole point is to help people, and whether or not your Catholic symbol or cross symbol or any religious symbol is affiliated with the charities, the whole point is that it's a charity helping people. How weird is this kind of decision by the Wisconsin Supreme Court?
Absolutely. This is completely odd, but this is exactly why the race that's going on in Wisconsin is exactly so important in this moment. The next thing they're going to say is that the Pope is just a secular motivational speaker. This is a dangerous path. As somebody who comes from a donor family, the University of Notre Dame better watch out, because if Catholic Charities is not Catholic, they're going to have to get a rebrand that says they're the Secular University of South Bend. And like I said, that's not something we want to see. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Arguments were heard in front of the Supreme Court today. It seemed like the justices were leaning like, hey, yeah, you can't do this, and it feels like you're targeting Christian organizations, which, Anthony, is what I'd love to ask you about. Kind of this whole idea stems from a bunch of the libs saying, well, we need to get rid of religion and Christianity specifically in modern culture. Obviously, there's pushback from the religious folks out there, but at the same time, they're making headway in so many different ways. What do we have to do to make sure we can maintain a Judeo-Christian value-based society?
Well, the only way to maintain any type of Judeo-Christian value system is by being people that are involved in the communities. Because what the left does, they take everything that they don't want, they rebrand it, redefine it, and then try to push it with every kind of resource behind it so that people not have to accept it. Because if you don't, you lose funding. If you don't, you lose this and that. This isn't the first time in history that the church has been under attack, and it's still standing. These are the things that Christ told us about when he said we're going to be facing persecution. I really want to see, now that they're attacking the Catholic Church, if they're going to go as far as to telling black churches that that's not church service, it's just cookouts in pews. We'll see what happens next. But overall, the big thing that you see here is the church. It shows that the church is pivotal in the communities and how young people, how adults, and how families are shaped to now actually make a community that actually can withstand all of the pushback that they're getting now.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'd love for them to go and do a Southern Black church and be like, hey, you guys are not actually religious enough. Which, again, to the response would be like, oh, okay, we'll be more religious, I guess. Like, what do you want from us to do?